Welcome to the Trent England Show. Thanks for joining me on this Wednesday. Yesterday we talked all about the one angle on the Oklahoma State Department of Health, and that is how much it is just like most of the rest of Oklahoma State agencies and even government agencies, state and local agencies across the country, the complicated mix of funding, the lack of real democratic accountability. It's worse in Oklahoma. There are some other states who do it this way as well, but you know, there are things that we can do, things that we can do better. I put that up at after the show yesterday. I put all that together. It went up, I think, this morning at ocpathink.org. We can bounce that up for you to see that. You can go find that. It's all written up with practical suggestions for the next governor, for the next legislature, what we need to do to change the way we do government in Oklahoma. And this shouldn't be, you know, I don't think this is Republican, Democrat, left, right. I mean, all that is irrelevant to just having a budget process that works better, isn't it? Sometimes, well, anyhow, I was going to say sometimes my friends on the left act like, you know, good government and responsible budgeting is a right-wing plot, but I'm not going to say that because I'm hoping they'll actually work with us in the wake of the health department scandal to try to make some common sense changes. So that's that. I hope you go to ocpathink.org and pull that up. I wanted to highlight for you, before I get to our main stories for today, I wanted to highlight even CBS News, right? Even CBS News is noticing one of the reasons, actually this is one of the things OCPA was created to deal with in Oklahoma, and we've done a lot. There's more to do, but it's good to see some mainstream old guard media organizations picking up the story about state pensions being a real significant risk. I mean, if you are a retired or soon to be retiring state worker, or if you're actually, if you're a state government or a local government worker at any point in your career, you should know the state of your pension plan and what the politicians are doing with your pension plan if you're on a defined benefit pension plan, because all you have is a promise from a politician. Let's just be real clear about this. And I mean, what CBS pointed out is based on this study by the Pew Institute, is that some states, even after a pretty good run of growth in the stock market, some states, including New Jersey, pension funds, if there was a downturn, could actually go bust. And if they don't go bust, they could bust the rest of the state budget. So anyhow, that is, so, I mean, look, I'll just say this. It's ridiculous. I mean, it makes no sense to allow politicians the power to make promises that don't come due for decades. That is so foolish. Why did we ever do that? And I'm glad that Oklahoma we're sort of unraveling ourselves from some of those systems. It takes a long time, but at least we have been moving in the right direction. Okay, the big story for today, I told you yesterday, we're going to talk a little bit about higher education today. There is a study that came out. The Oklahoman editorial board covered it. Good for them. They took this in exactly the right direction. The Pell, what is it, Pell Institute? Pell Institute for the Study of Opportunity in Higher Education did this study looking at higher education rates across the states for low-income people, right? So for folks who can, in theory, benefit the most from getting a college degree, they looked at the rates in different states, and Oklahoma does really bad. This is a ranking where Oklahoma does really bad on the outcome. Now, so they're looking at the outcome. And of course, what are you going to have? You're going to have people in higher education. Well, it's because you're not giving us enough money. It's because this, it's because of that, it's whatever. The Oklahoman actually looked at these inputs. So you can go to this study and you can look at the outcomes, which, you know, we should be focused on outcomes. But then if you want to understand why you get the outcomes, you got to look back at the inputs. And what are the inputs? We actually subsidize higher education more than a number of states that do better than us on this ranking. Now I'm going to question the whole ranking in just a minute. So if you're sitting there, I'm not sure I buy the whole thing. Well, you just stick with me, and you know, maybe we can be in heated agreement here in just a minute. But look, Oklahoma actually subsidizes higher ed more than a lot of states. And Oklahoma institutions of higher education, supposed or real, actually are much cheaper than they are in many of these other states, right? I mean, we have students coming out with less debt. We have students paying less, right? The sticker price is lower. And our subsidies, despite the fact that we have pulled back a little bit, and I explained that yesterday. If you need an explanation of the pullback a little bit, you can go watch yesterday's Trent England Show. But all the inputs, Oklahoma looks pretty good. At least looks better than a lot of other states where the outcomes are better than our outcome is. Well, two things. The first is, and as soon as I saw this, I knew what part of the answer is, because you know what the lowest ranking state is in this ranking for how many low-income young people are getting college degrees? The state that does the worst is Alaska. What does Oklahoma and Alaska have in common? What do we have in common? We're energy states. We actually have, and this is something to celebrate, folks. I mean, this is not something to bemoan. It's something we should celebrate. We have lots of good-paying jobs for people who are willing to go out and work hard and work their way up in organizations. We have lots of good-paying jobs that don't require college degrees. They might require a welding certificate or some other kind of certification, but they don't require a 4-year degree. That's a good thing. We should fight to maintain that. Right? Because, you know, one of the things that you'll hear all the time, I'm actually writing something about this, you'll hear, well, more and more jobs require a college degree. Well, that may be true, but you know what's not true? What's not true is that more and more jobs require a college education. They may require a college degree, but that doesn't mean they require a college education. So that's something I'm sure we'll talk about more in the future. The other thing going on, and this is what the Oklahoman points out, and again, good for them, is that we know when we look further into the inputs and further into the data, what's the biggest problem we have here in the great state of Oklahoma? It's that students graduate from high school unprepared to go to college. Students are being moved up through our schools year after year until they finally walk away with a diploma, and then they walk out into higher ed, or they try to get into higher ed, and they discover that their high school diploma is worth much less than the politicians, and by which I mean school board members and school superintendents, and yes, legislators and other folks, but primarily it's school board members, local school boards, local superintendents who are they're the tip of the failing spear here. Right? They walk away with degrees, and I will never forget talking to a mother from a small Oklahoma town who said her daughter had been told she was a great writer. Her daughter had been acing English classes year after year. She went to college, she had to take remedial English. Why? Because her teachers, her entire school system was lying to her. Right? They were failing her year after year, and the only way to not admit that they were failing, the only way to stay unexposed was to keep lying, right? And that's what they do, and that's what we do over and over, and credit the Oklahoman for pointing this out, and I will put the link up to the Pell study after the show here. You can go and read all that if you want to. Okay, a couple other funny stories here. The Podemos party, you know what Podemos means in Spanish? Spain's Podemos party, you're going to recognize this because it sounds a lot like our last president's campaign slogan. Podemos means we can. So if you say sí Podemos, that was actually Obama's campaign slogan in Spanish. But the Podemos party, the radical left-wing party in Spain, has been in a little bit of turmoil over the last week. You know how they won power? One of the ways they won power was pointing out the corruption of current politicians, right? This is what outsiders always do. The current politicians are corrupt. One of their pieces of evidence was that the current politicians lived in these mansions, and now the head of Podemos and his wife, who is another top official in Podemos, they decided to buy a luxurious mansion, and they actually survived a vote of no confidence. Because, you know, ultimately folks on the left understand that, you know, you only complain about income inequality until you take power. That is the story of the left, isn't it? Okay, what else do we have here? Hackable, trackable license plates. Did you see, you've probably seen this story already. California is rolling out license plates, digitized license plates. These are license plates that are trackable by government, that are potentially hackable, and that cost $700 right, a piece. Plus, you have to pay $7 a month, right? I mean, it's like, you know, it's like license plate Prime or something. I mean, no, Amazon wouldn't roll out something that expensive. This is crazy, right? They're rolling this out in California. They're teasing people with the idea that, well, maybe you'll be able to change it up. I'm pretty sure you won't be able to, you know, say what you want to say to that guy who's riding your bumper. I'm pretty sure you're not actually going to have that option with these with these license plates. It's clearly a way for the state government of California to try to make money. You'll remember here in Oklahoma, right, our state government actually tried to make money printing license. They just said, well, you know what, we'll just make everybody buy new license plates because that'll bring in some revenue. And then they miscalculated and didn't bring in the revenue that, yeah. So in California, I mean, this will probably work better in California. They're better at fleecing the public there, right? They've been doing it for longer. And as I point out, you know, the number of palm trees you have sort of is related to the amount of bad policy that you can get away with. That's at least one of my theories about public policy after having lived in California. But you know, this is just wild, right? But it got me thinking. Here's a thought, right? Why does government make license plates at all, right? Why don't they just tell us you have to have, right? I mean, they could put out, right? They could pass a law and say you have to have a plate on your vehicle that has these numbers, and you're going to be assigned on your car registration what the numbers have to be, and you have to renew it every year. Maybe they're going to send you a sticker every year or something like that. Why does government make license plates at all, right? All they have to do is say, it has to look like this, it has to be like this, it has to last for this long, and if you don't have that, you're going to get a ticket. That's how it works now anyway, right? I mean, I can go drive my car without a license plate on it, but I'll get a ticket, right, eventually, or get arrested or something. I don't know, get beaten on the sidewalk or something, you know, depending on what jurisdiction I'm in, right? But why does government do this in the first place? Do we ever ask ourselves that question just about all these random things that government does, right? Why do they do that? I can maybe understand with driver's licenses, but license plates makes no sense, right? I don't. Do they still stamp these things out in penal institutions? I don't know if they do that or not. Okay, that's the hackable, trackable license plates in California. And if you're driving through California next year and a license plate starts saying bad words at you, you'll know somebody paid $700 for that. Okay, two more stories. These are just fun stories for me. There are folks complaining about the art auction market because women, there is a gender imbalance in the art auction world, right? There's all this art gets auctioned off all the time in places like London and New York. It's very expensive. And somebody has done a study and they've said that there are very few women artists who are in that top set of artists. So, I mean, look, I just thought we've got this story. We're going to pull up this story from the BBC and look at who are the top grossing women artists. And you can see there at the very top, Yayoi Kusama is the top grossing woman artist. She makes polka dots. And they're complaining that she's not up. You know who the top grossing artist is? Leonardo da Vinci, right? The man, yeah, I'm sorry, but he was a man. The man did not make polka dots. I mean, let's pull that back up. Let's look at some of these other things. Let's scroll in. There's another Kusama there with more, somewhat more creative polka dots. It looks like a bunch of sea anemones to me. There's a spider. Somebody put a spider in front of, what is that, St. Paul's, right? That's Leonardo da Vinci did not, Michelangelo was not making big spiders. Michelangelo was not a particularly masculine man, by the way. I mean, go down to number 4. Agnes Martin, they're basically blank. This is blank, right? This is not a Raphael, right? This isn't even a Whittier. I mean, that's enough of that. I looked at this story, I thought, I mean, come on, right? I mean, this is like every story like this, right? I mean, I guess men have been making a lot of art for hundreds of years, and women weren't in the game. I wasn't there. You weren't there, right? Nobody can be blamed for that who's around today, right? But if women want to go out and compete with Leonardo da Vinci, I'm sorry, ladies, you got to step up your game. That's just the way it is. Okay, one more story here. We're going to end on a happy note now that I've offended 51% of the population. Let's end on a happier note about dolphins. I love this story because, first of all, because this research was paid for by, I think, the French government, not our government. They were researching dolphin happiness. When I saw that there was a new study out on dolphin happiness, I thought, oh, no, you didn't, right? Congress, another earmark, but no, dolphins don't even have ears. This is a story paid for, apparently, by the French. a research study. They wanted to determine you got these poor dolphins. You see that cute dolphin there? You got these poor dolphins living in captivity, and they wanted to figure out how can we make sure that dolphins in captivity are happy. What makes dolphins happy? Because these dolphins have been captured by evil human beings, and they're put in cages by evil human beings, and these nasty human beings are doing these things to dolphins, and at least we're going to figure out what makes dolphins happy. You know what makes dolphins happy? The outcome of the study, what makes dolphins happy is spending time with human beings. That's what makes dolphins happy. I'm Trent England. Thanks for watching the show today. I told the producer I was going to try to send one of the stories into the camera as a paper airplane, so I'm going to do that here as I wrap up the show. Just because we try to keep it interesting here on the program. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music Store. We're on Stitcher. We're on YouTube. We're all over the place on Facebook. I'm Trent England. Thanks for watching. Not a very good paper airplane.